All right, so I'm not gonna lie. This is quite a bit because there's like a rebrand that's happening, and I kind of have to change with that. And I haven't done these kinds of episodes in quite a bit of a time. But you know what? I'm here. I'm putting in the work, and I'm gonna do my best to give you as great of an episode as I've always tried to. And I'll start by telling you that this episode is made up of a fucking priest, a cringy trend, and a challenging question. If you're trying to get into relationships, at least. And at least in that order, you know exactly what's going to be coming along. So I'm going to start things off by talking about the priest. So about a month ago, a Kenyan Catholic priest decided to do something that most people wouldn't have ever expected. And don't worry, no small boys were used in the making of this story, because the guy actually got married. Like, normally you hear priests doing all sorts of things, but getting married isn't one of those things. So the guy ended up wedding in Githunguri, and he said that it was God's will. Now I'm just going to read the story for you real quick. So it says, and I quote, "In the Catholic Church, priests are normally expected to stay single and not get married. However, Reverend Father Edwid Gathangi Waiguru has decided to join a different group called the Catholic Charismatic Church. Standing next to his wife, Margaret Wanjera Githui, Father Waiguru said, and I quote, 'You can serve God and have a family and a wonderful wife. God made man and woman on purpose and said it's not good for someone to be alone.' End quote. According to NTV, many people from the couple's family and friends attended the unique ceremony." End quote. And end of story. Now, you kind of think about a situation like this. Like, normally you never expect a priest to get married, because Catholics just have this thing where it's like the moment you choose to devote yourself to the Father, you kind of have to swear off screwing. Yet weirdly enough, if you actually look into it, you actually realize that most of these guys still end up screwing one way or another. So for the most part, they're just swearing off the fact that people know publicly that this is someone that can go and screw around. They think that, you know what, as long as this guy decides to swear off the idea of sex, he's gonna be a great dude. Which, we're clearly seeing is absolute bull. So to see a guy kind of look at, what the social norm is, what the status quo is for what it is that he's doing, and be like, you know what, I don't want the 9-year-olds. I don't think the 10-year-old kids are really worth me. Let me go and get myself a woman that can actually consent to me screwing. Like, I'm actually kind of happy that the guy did that. Because you kind of think about it, yes, we always make the joke about Catholic priests and like dealing with small boys. But for the most part, like if you look at the cases here in Kenya, there's a lot of Catholic priests who, despite the fact that they practically swore off sex, have baby mamas, have girlfriends that some of them even have kids with. So for you to be like, he's a part of the Catholic Church, and because he's a priest, he's not supposed to do that. Like, I feel like at the end of the day, if you're gonna do something like this, where, you decide, I actually want to kind of go against the status quo, then you might as well do it properly. And this guy is doing it properly. And he joins a faction of Catholic fathers and priests who have decided, much as this is what the Roman Catholic Church says, we need to stop denying the fact that we are human, we are men, and we like to screw around. So we might as well go and get someone that we can screw around under the right parameters, Although, then again, since I'm not Catholic, I can't really say too much about this. Plus, it's not like I'm trying to be celibate anytime soon. So for now, I'm going to leave it at that, because I've been itching to start this podcast because there's a new name and I might as well get accustomed to the new intro and outro so that, I can familiarize myself pretty quickly. So without further ado...
The royal penis is clean, Your Highness.
Welcome to the Break Time Podcast, the podcast that talks about love, sex, and relationships, and a bunch of other guy shit from a guy's perspective. The man on the mic is a man whose spirit is willing and whose flesh can sometimes get hard. He's a man who believes that astrology should have been the study of ass. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. This whole new intro thing is something that I'm still trying to get used to. Like, changing up the format was something that I told myself I was going to do. It's something that I've been planning on doing, but I never really knew that it's going to take this much adjustment, because the number of times I've had to redo the intro just to get it to this point is not easy. But all in all, it's definitely been quite a number of weeks since I did the episodes like this, and this change was actually meant to come. Now, in those weeks, while I was busy doing the shortened, much lighter, much more, how would I call it, intimate type episodes, there was a lot of things that were happening that I wasn't really talking about. And for the most part, it's not that I didn't want to talk about them, it's just that when I'm on a break format, I stick to the break format, and when I'm on the regular full episode format, I kind of like to stick to that as well. The number of things that happened, like the most notable one for me, I think just because I'm an ass man, is the ceiling challenge or the surround sound challenge, whatever it is you want to call it, where babes and other people in groups are busy taping a phone to the ceiling and doing a bunch of dances and random shit, when the camera is facing them from an aerial view. And that was really fun to watch. And it kind of reminded me of the busset challenge that happened during COVID, and how great that challenge was for us ass men, because babes were busy dropping down and they were rocking looks. Some of them were just trying to shake booty and shit, and we loved it. But knowing that challenge started off as something very innocent and fun and then just got sexualized so quickly was something that sounded like a very good starting point for a conversation online. But with that said, I think the other thing that really stood out during this entire time was the whole lawsuit thing. Like, they are sexual assault and sexual abuse lawsuits that just were popping up out of the blues. And the most famous one that kind of kicked off quite a number of these lawsuits was when Diddy was being accused of sexual assault and rape by his ex-girlfriend Cassie, and it was settled in 24 hours, if not less, from the time the suit itself was actually filed, which did raise some questions as to whether Diddy did it or not, blah blah. But that kind of opened the floodgates. A lot of other people ended up being sued for the same. Jamie Foxx, Cuba Gooding Jr., and most people were thinking that it's babes that are rushing for a payday. But I actually recently found out that most of this was actually coming as a result of the New York Adult Survivors Act, which sort of opened a year-long window for survivors of sexual assault to file civil suits past the statute of limitations, and the window was actually supposed to be closing around, I think, the end of November. So it's like people just discovered, oh shit, we have this situation, let's file these suits and either get a payday or make sure that we get retribution for that sort of feeling or treatment that we got that certain time. So, that kind of happened. But the thing that stood out for me that I felt probably should be discussed on this podcast, mostly because I'm a guy and this is something that really affects guys, mostly young ones, is the whole bubbly challenge. Now, granted, it's a challenge that didn't last very long and not that many people even know about it, but essentially it was off of a Kenyan song that was being used for the challenge, and what dudes were doing was they would wear loose shorts with probably no boxers or any innerwear, and at the point where the artist would say bubbly, like these guys would swing their hips and they'd let their dicks kind of fly up and down or in whatever direction. And essentially it was supposed to show that dude has a big cock. But the reality of it is, in as much as people thought that this is something that could go viral or should trend, like, for the most part, I saw it and I felt like it was cringe. And you could say that it's because I'm a straight man, and if I was a woman or if I was a gay dude, I'd probably like it. But interestingly enough, even the women, actually quite a number of them were calling it cringe. They were saying that these young boys have actually gotten super wild and shit. And to be very honest, like, I know that it's not really my business to give a damn or anything, but the moment I saw it, I kind of recognized that a lot of these guys kind of have the idea all wrong. Because when you look at the ceiling challenge, which was trending at about the same time as the bubbly challenge, when you look at the busset challenge, when you look at how a lot of these babes will sort of make these challenges go viral, there's a sort of sexual element to it that really intrigues people. And that will help certain babes get famous, and it'll make videos blow up and shit, but it doesn't really work the same way for guys. And it mostly comes down to a statement that a certain YouTuber once said, which I can echo here, because the guy said that men view women as sex objects, women view men as success objects. Alright, so to think that you can sort of play the whole let me try and sexualize myself game to try and attract more attention from the opposite sex is kind of aiming in the wrong direction. It's pretty much the near equivalent of a babe trying to ensure that she becomes the CEO so that she can attract more male suitors. Like, it doesn't really work that way. Because a big part of the reason why us guys love, things like the ceiling challenge, the bust it challenge, beba beba, and so on, it's mostly because we sexualize certain things like that. Like, we like seeing booty jiggle. And yes, babes might like dick, but they don't like dick when it's being thrown to their face, if I can put it like that. Like, they'd like to know that you have a big dick, but they'd want to see it from a dick print that you didn't intend on showing them. They would like to know that you're great in bed, but they wouldn't want you to come and tell them that you're great in bed. If you're good at a certain thing, and if you're particularly well known for it, then your name will spread. People will talk. They will find out based off of some of the smaller things that you'll do which allude to it, or from other people when they talk about how good you are at a certain thing. Which means that you have become particularly successful at that particular thing, which makes you more attractive to the women. But you swinging your dick trying to show how big it is, yes, babes will look at it and be like, damn, that's a big dick. I imagine that it would probably be mad if I took it, but it doesn't mean that they'd actually want to fuck you at that point in time. Dudes will see a booty jiggle and will be like, damn, I can hit that any day of the week. And under the right parameters, they will hit that any day of the week. With women, they could say the same thing, but it doesn't mean that they'll actually do it. So please, if you're a young guy and you're listening to this, always remember, women will be viewed as sex objects, men will be viewed as success objects. Don't try crossing to the other side, because all that it'll do is give the wrong message, which will give you the most unintended results. Although, then again, maybe I don't know too much about that shit, so I will leave it at that and move things on to our main topic of today. And to be very honest, when I was thinking of what I should discuss, I figured, let me try something a little bit challenging. Because this is, a change. I'm practically turning over a new leaf. And as far as ways to start, I might as well start with a bang. So I found this post on Reddit that was challenging enough for me to try and tackle, mostly because of the missing variables that would probably help me make a pretty informed decision. So the title reads, and I quote, "I feel ugly AF." Now I'm gonna read the whole thing for you before I give my thoughts on it, as usual. So it says, and I quote, "When I go to an event, no one comes to talk to me or even ask for my number, no matter how social I am. I think I reek of some serious negative energy. Men don't approach me at all, and this has been going on ever since I was younger. My heart is so big and I just want to share my love with someone, but no one ever seems interested. Is my resting bitch face that serious? Because I do think I am pretty and my body is also quite hot. Anyway, don't judge me too harshly. I am just typing out my intrusive thoughts as I sit here and watch everyone couple up as they pass me by, as if I am transparent." End quote. Now, she did add the fact that she's a female, 30 years old, and well, to be very honest, this is one of those situations that, like, on one end it seems very simple, but when you kind of think about it, it's not as simple as you might think, because it's not like the babe uploaded a photo or told us how she looks like, besides the fact that she says that she has a pretty hot body and she thinks that she's pretty. Like, besides that, we have nothing else to go on. So I have no idea what she looks like. I have no particular context of like when exactly this happened or in what situations that she's been in. She just said social events, and for the most part I'm kind of flying blind here. But I am still going to try and figure my way through all of this, because as guys, we usually tend to tackle this question quite a lot as we grow up. Not unless if you've been attractive enough that you've always been courting female attention ever since you were like a really, really young kid. So first things first, I will say that I am happy that she took responsibility. That's something that a lot of women don't do these days. And I know it sounds like I'm taking a dump on women, but it's not. It's actually the truth. A lot of women, when they're at a situation where they're not being approached by guys, they'll say that guys don't approach women nowadays. They will say that, there's no good quality guys out there that are approaching them. Or they'll say that there's no guys that seem interested in dating these days because they don't approach really good looking women, and they'll cite themselves. So the fact that she's directing the locus of control internally towards herself means that she's at least willing to look at herself and see that there might be something that she's doing or not doing that is preventing her from getting guys. All right. So that one, as a guy, I salute her for at least, taking up that sense of responsibility, because that's something that guys normally do. And it usually means that there's something that you can do for yourself that can possibly change your situation. So now, with that said, I will admit that yes, in as much as, you should always take responsibility and start with yourself and make those changes, there are some things that are definitely beyond your control. Regardless of whether you're male or female, when it comes to the whole, trying to get a partner game, there's some things that are just beyond your control. So one of the things that are beyond your control is who's approaching you and whether you're being approached by guys or not. Because, okay, you could argue it out, but for the most part, it's usually out of your control. You can try and make it a lot easier for people to approach you, but you can't really determine whether people are going to approach you or not. And unfortunately, at this day and age in our lives, in the 21st century and everything, there's way less guys that are approaching women than ever. Like, one of the things you'll realize about, guys in Nairobi, for example, is we don't approach women all that much nowadays. Nowadays, most guys are trying to focus on like a referral type babe. So if you see a fire babe, you look for someone that that knows that babe, and you try and you get some sort of an introduction. There's not that many guys that are trying to approach women. For the most part, you can argue it out as, you don't want to be accused of sexual abuse, which I don't think is mostly the issue. I think for the most part, it's either you're not confident in yourself for one reason or another, or you simply just afraid of being rejected, But the bottom line is, if you're a babe, you can't exactly control who approaches you and whether they'll approach you at a certain time, when they'll approach you, and how many of them will actually approach you. But with that said, there are quite a number of things that you can do as a woman to improve your chances of being approached. And I'm saying this as a guy, not because I've been a woman before, but because I have approached women before. I chill with guys who approach women. So I have a pretty good idea of what would make me want to approach a woman or not approach a woman. So one of the very, very important things is approachability. And it might sound like it's such a simple thing, but interestingly enough, there's so many women that kind of fail at this. Because, for example, you guys go out to the club as a bunch of babes. You're the five of you. Even though you're the finest babe, if you sit at the table in between your four friends, so two on the left, two on the right, and you're literally just facing down glued on your phone, do you really think that I will find you approachable? Like, first of all, getting through your friends is one thing. All right, then getting you to lift your head from your phone, which probably might even have some more interesting shit than I am, already a task in and of itself. So would I feel like it would be a good opening to go and approach you? No, I wouldn't. Also, if you're chilling on a table with a couple of your friends and they're coupled up, so like let's say it's, 2-3 of your babe friends with their dudes and you're the single person there, it's also going to be hard for me to approach you, because even though you are the single person there, there's a couple of dudes there. The only thing that could feel like a bit more of a cock block than a bunch of babes being there is if there's a bunch of dudes there as well, because the moment you might feel slighted, these dudes can pounce on me at any moment. And I need to kind of gauge that out and see if that's something that I need to be worried about or not. Then second of all, there's the looks. Now, I don't know what you look like as a person, whoever it is, whether you're reading this, whether you're the person who put up the Reddit post, but what I can say for a fact is, you believing that you're hot or you're pretty and everyone else feeling the same way is not always going to be in line. Like, there's very few people who can say that they're beautiful and it's universally agreed that they are beautiful. Like, those ones have to be like the 11s out of 10 and shit. And since I don't know whether you're that or you're not, what I'll do is I'll just give you pretty much the same advice I give every single dude, because I don't know if a dude is hot or not. Because at the end of the day, if you feel like you're not good looking and that's what's not getting you people, then it's up to you to change that. And how exactly do you change that? You go and you work out, you try and make sure your body's pretty toned, that you've got curves and shit. You make sure you don't look like you've let yourself go. You just sort of pay attention to your body. And if you're a babe, you can also pay attention to your skincare. There's babes who, because they've gotten money and, they've managed to get more skincare, they go to the gym, they afford better clothes, they look way hotter than they did before they got the money. Like, at the end of the day, it's something that's very, very attainable, and it's something that can move you up 1 or 2 rating places. So you can move from a 6 to an 8 just by doing that. Now, at the same time, I will also admit that looks won't really be the determining factor as to whether it is you can be approached or not. But if you feel like the looks could affect that or could influence that, then making them better could work in your favor, right? Then also the other point is being open and available. Like, yes, I know Shorty said that whenever she's at social events, she's not being approached. But the question is, what social events are these? Because there are a lot of women in this day and age who say that they're not approached, who say that they can't find a guy. But these are people who go to the office, go back home, or hell, some of them work from home, so they're mostly at home and they just go to get groceries and shit. And besides going to visit a friend or two, or going for a dinner with friends, or some event for a friend or something of that sort, they don't really get out all that much. Now, it's more or less like a much larger scale version of not being approachable, but essentially, if you're not putting yourself in a position where you can be approached, then how the hell do you expect to be approached? Like, a very good example of a place where you are very approachable is a singles event. Now, some people feel some way about singles events and about, speed dating and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's the most intentional place to get approached, because you're frankly going there because you want to be approached or because you want to approach someone. And that's something that, even though you might look down on it, it's something that's actually beneficial to you in one way or another. And then another reason why you may not be considered approachable is personality. Like, at the end of the day, I think a lot of people forget how important personality is even on a babe. Like, there's a statement that I've always said ever since I was in high school, which was, your looks will only ever get you past the first 5 minutes, and after that, who you are and your personality is what carries you the rest of the way. Now, call that wisdom, call that BS, but it's something that guys kind of get to notice after a while, because you hit on this super fine babe, but if she has an attitude, then you automatically switch to probably trying to smash. If the attitude is too bad, you eventually switch over and probably even start talking to one of her friends. Like, if you have a garbage personality, then of course you're not exactly going to be the easiest person to approach. And interestingly enough, your personality can also bleed through your body language. So stuff that will be able to view from a couple of meters away, such as how you treat your friends, how you're talking to certain people, how people may want to or not want to relate with you when you're at a social event, might make it seem as though you're the person that people don't want to talk to, or you're the person that people might be thinking is a piece of shit, or you're just the person that tagged along. Meaning that your quality as a person, at least from us that are viewing from a couple of meters away, will probably be lower. So at the end of the day, your personality is actually quite important. And last but definitely not least, I'd argue that this one's probably even the most, is confidence. How confident are you as a person? Like, this is something that guys will be told from the get-go. You need to improve your confidence so you can approach women. And it's the same exact thing that I can say to women. Like, if you're not confident and your body posture does not show a confident woman, then there's a pretty good chance that you won't look good in the first place. No matter how good your looks are, they'll just drop by a certain notch because you're not looking as confident. And also, if you don't look confident and you're not trying to sort of stand out and, like peacock a little bit, then how exactly will you expect people to notice you? Alright, so to kind of conclude all of this, all of these are things that I would tell my fellow guys, but just because you're a woman doesn't mean that these tips don't apply to you as well. Improving on all of these things actually can work, and it actually can help you. And even though I didn't mention you actually being the one to approach guys, you actually have a better chance at bagging a guy when you approach them as opposed to when you expect them to approach you. And that's something that's actually statistically proven. So if that's something that you'd want to consider, it's actually not a bad idea. You have a lower chance of being rejected by a guy if you approach them as opposed to if a guy tries to approach you as a woman. Also, one of the things that actually hinders people from being approached is because they are playing the game that 10s play, and yet they're not a 10, they're a 4, a 5, or a 6. And then when they're not approached, now they suddenly complain that they're not being approached. Like, at the end of the day, not everyone is going to be a 10. I think that's something that we all need to accept. And if you continue trying to act like you're a 10, or at least if you continue thinking that you feeling like you're a 10 is what's going to get you approached, then you're going to sit for quite a while expecting to be approached, and yet people don't find you a 10. So they're not willing to take the same kinds of risks to just try and bag you. So at the end of the day, sometimes you need to get out of your comfort zone and be like, you know what if I'm nowhere near a 10 and I need to work towards getting a guy? The moment you start thinking about that and you start looking at ways that you can bag a dude like that, the better it is for you as a babe. Although, then again, I could be wrong about this shit, so I want your thoughts on it. The DMs are open on IG, on Facebook, it is at The Break Time Podcast, on Twitter, it is at Bagaka the D. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.
But what I believe is that if you put a pastor and a prostitute in one room, one is likely to convert the other.